All of three-dimensional existence as we know it is a game created by beings from a higher dimension with the intent of experiencing finality. In short, our 3D existence gives beings with infinite power the one thing they can't experience themselves: having something to lose. To begin, we'll need to lay just a little bit of groundwork. Let's take a look at each dimension, starting with the first and the abilities that a being would have while living within that dimension. You'll notice a common theme here where each time the being enters a higher dimension, it also gains a new set of abilities. That's because it's now bound by a new world with less boundaries. Here, let me show you. A one-dimensional being cannot move. It doesn't have length or width. It's just a single point, and it doesn't have the ability to travel anywhere on its own. Whereas a two-dimensional being can move, but only forward and backwards, without having the ability to jump up or fall down. This 2D being is limited by its two-dimensional world, but compared to the 1D being that's only a point, well, it's able to do a whole lot more just by living in one dimension higher. A three-dimensional being can not only move forward and backwards, but it can also jump up and down, fall, climb, and descend. It lives one dimension higher than the 2D being, therefore it has less boundaries. And while it has far more abilities, it's still bound to its three-dimensional world. So this is where it gets a little bit harder for us 3Ders to imagine. So just try and stay with me here, and feel free to pause or rewind if you need to. That's absolutely okay. A fourth-dimensional being can not only move like we can as 3D beings, forward, backwards, up and down, but it can also move back and forth through time. Imagine being able to walk to last week as if it were a destination. That sounds impossible to a 3D being, but to somebody living just one dimension up in the fourth, that sounds as normal to them as jumping up and down or walking back and forth does to us. If you're curious about what each dimensional being can theoretically do, there's tons of videos out there that can explain this in great detail. But for this video, just suffice it to say that once you get up to the 9th dimension, beings no longer have physical bodies, can travel anywhere they want through time and space, throughout all the multiverse, which means any of the alternate universes that exist, and they can do it forever. So that's a lot to take in. But if there's one thing that we do know as three-dimensional beings, it's that all good things tend to get old after a while, no matter how great they were at first. So think about that for a second. If we can agree that there are higher dimensions than the three in which we live, and that beings might exist in these higher dimensions without us having the ability to perceive them, the same way a cartoon character can't perceive its creating artist, well then, it's entirely possible that a being in the higher dimension, we'll call it the nth dimension, created our world as an escape from the mundane entrapment of infinite power and time. Console theory suggests that these beings from the nth dimension have created our world to experience loss. Whether it's money, food, work, love, or life itself. We as humans all work hard every day to either A, hold on to the things we have and love, or B, obtain the things that we want and or need. If we had the ability to obtain whatever we wanted from any time or place, it might just become a bit trivial to have nothing to lose. Therefore, console theory suggests that our world was designed and created solely to give beings of a higher dimension the ability to feel that loss, the one ability they don't actually have. But if this 3D world is all just the setting to an intricate game, then how do we fit into the picture? According to console theory, we 3D beings are avatars in a 3D game, and we're controlled by the nth dimensional beings who created this game in the first place. Let's think about video games that we humans have created. We turn on a three-dimensional console, and a 2D world appears for whatever game we've loaded right in front of us. And it's bound by the rules of one dimension below us in 2D. These characters in the game can't jump out at the screen. They can't even perceive that they're being controlled by 3D beings. So we 3Ders choose 2D characters to play that 2D game with. Once that game begins, we work together as creator and avatar, but the avatar is never aware that it's being controlled. It just does what it's told by the being that's one dimension higher, without the ability to perceive that being at all. That's a terrifying thought at first because it's disconcerting to think that we're not in control of our own thoughts, emotions, and therefore our lives. But there's good news coming, and this is the real mind fuck. So first, let's all just take a deep breath. Seriously, breathe deep with me for one breath. In and out. If we're just avatars in a game and we're controlled by beings in the nth dimension, then you're probably thinking, well, then who's controlling my avatar? The answer that should give you peace in all of this is that it's you. You are controlling your own avatar. You are the nth dimensional being. That might be hard to wrap your head around, but let's look at some clues and breadcrumbs that have led to this idea. If you're having trouble perceiving this, just remember something from Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I wonder if, in fact, the human intellect is sufficient to actually decode the full operations of this universe in which we live. We are an intelligent species because we defined ourselves that way. We don't have the benefit of another species to compare ourselves with, against whom we might fail miserably. And so when we compare ourselves to chimps, we sit up righteously and say, we have poetry and the Hubble telescope and philosophy, and the chimp just stacks boxes to reach a banana. Yet there's only 1% difference in our DNA. But then you'll say, what a difference that 1% makes. And I would say maybe that 1% DNA difference corresponds with an equally small difference in the intelligence between a chimp and humans. And you say, I can't believe that. No. Well, imagine some other species that visits us that's 1% along on that same scale, smarter than us. Consider, the smartest chimp does what our toddlers can do. And there's no way you will explain to a chimp, I'll have dinner ready at 6:30, can you pick up some juice on the way home? The simplest human thoughts are inconceivable to a chimp. And their talents are about what our toddlers can do. So let's get back to this 1% smarter alien that we've discovered. Corresponding this analogy, we now say, what would we look like to them? Well, they would roll Stephen Hawking forward after combing the human species, and they'd say, this one is slightly smarter than the rest because he can do astrophysics calculations in his head like little Timmy over here, who just came home from preschool. Oh, Timmy, you just composed 3 sonnets. Isn't that cute? Let's put it up on the refrigerator door. Oh, you just derived the fundamental law of calculus. Isn't that cute? Put it up on the refrigerator. Their simplest thoughts would transcend our deepest thoughts. And maybe to them, it is obvious what dark matter is and dark energy. Maybe to them, particles popping in and out of existence is a trivial exercise in their understanding of the multidimensional space-time continuum. And we are here groping at the sides of a wall, not knowing how tall, wide, or deep it is, because we have the limits of the human physiology evolved off the plains of Africa just to try to understand the entire universe. So I lose sleep on that question each night.
The following is the very first quote that came up from an article on a meditation website called Tearswan, and everything I found afterwards is completely consistent with this wording. To align something means to place it in a line with something else, or to arrange it so as to be parallel or straight with something else. But the question is with what? What are you supposed to be parallel with? The answer is your higher self. Your higher self is the eternal, incorporeal, omnipotent consciousness, which is your real self. It is the being that you go forth from and withdraw back to from life to life. It is the summation of all that you have ever been and all that you are. It is a consciousness, which is inseparable from that which we call source energy or God. So we could interchange the term higher self with the word source. You are the source. You are God. That's what's so exciting about this theory, because it empowers each and every being on this planet to find alignment with their higher self and live a life without fear of loss or even death. We can tap into the confidence of knowing that our higher selves come from a world full of abundance, which brings them to crave this 3D experience full of loss in the first place. Console theory suggests that wherever it is we go once we die, we'll already be there to greet ourselves. That's a profound statement that should provide comfort, so I'll repeat it. Wherever it is that we go, we'll already be there to greet ourselves. Imagine if you knew that when you died, you'd just go back to where you came from only to come back here again, just without any knowledge of your previous life. But how would that work? It's hard to imagine, but console theory answers this question using the video game analogy once again. Let's say John, a 3D being, chooses to play a 2D video game with Mario as his avatar. Once he chooses Mario, John is Mario. Mario doesn't have his own personality and emotions. He thinks and feels what John thinks and feels, and does what John tells him to do. Then, once Mario dies in the game, the 2D character no longer exists in the 2D world, but John is still present in the world just one dimension higher. Sure, Mario the avatar died, but his essence, which is John, has been there all along. Now let's take this one step further and ask the following question. What happens when John plays the game again? The next time John plays the game, he can either choose to play with Mario or a new character. Console theory suggests that 2D Mario would have no memory of the first game it just played with John as its essence, but would simply wake up to a new world as if it were his first time. Each time through, the 2D game is a new and separate experience for each 2D character, even though they're being controlled each time by the same three-dimensional being. And that's what's even more amazing. It's that the 3D being can remember all the specific experience playing as each specific 2D character, as if it were all part of just one activity of playing the game itself. So if that's what's really happening, then what's the meaning of life here in a 3D existence? What can we walk away from after watching this video that allows us to process this huge idea of our existence? According to console theory, the meaning of life is simple. It's to live. The meaning of life is to live to the fullest. And we do that by aligning with our higher selves instead of fighting through inner turmoil just to make it through each and every day. We can move forward knowing that this is not the last life we'll live. And more importantly, it's most likely not the first life we've lived either. Console theory suggests that life is a game, so why not play it? I'll leave you with this. Life should be thought of more like the experience of listening to a piece of music, instead of being on a journey to a final destination. So instead of thinking about where it is that you're going to next, or where it is that you've been, enjoy the symphony that's playing all around you. We don't listen to a piece of music just to get to the end of it, so why would we walk through our lives that way? You play a piano, you don't work it. You play music, you don't work it. Let your work be playful and let your life be a game that's meant to be enjoyed to the fullest. And if you use that time to enjoy all those things that we have to lose, everything else will just fall into place. Just remember, wherever it is that we go, we'll already be there to greet ourselves.